Back with us, Brigadier General Amir Avivi. General Avivi is the founder and chair of Habitkonistim, the Israel Defense and Security Forum, the IDSF. And I would really appreciate if everybody who is listening today or listening tomorrow or on the recording this week goes to idsf.org.il and contributes to their wonderful work. It is a group of 22,000 reserve officers and operatives from all branches of the Israeli security forces. The IDSF is dedicated to guiding the narrative of Israel's national security needs and ensuring that Israel's security in the homeland of the Jewish people is never taken for granted. The IDSF is a strong Zionist security-based movement that believes that Israel's security is the top national priority, ensuring Jewish sovereignty and survival in the state of Israel for generations to come. During his many years of service, General Avivi held a series of senior roles in the IDF, including Deputy Controller of the Security Forces, Director of the Office of the Chief Staff, Director of the, Director of the Office, or Deputy Commander of the Gaza Division, Commander of the Sagai Division, Commander of the Battalion 605, and Commander of the School of Combat Engineering. Also, our audience should please know that not only does Amit host these wonderful webinars each week, but we are on Capitol Hill practically every single day educating our members of Congress. Our policymakers have come to rely on us at Amit to keep them educated about the current issues involving all of the Middle East. So I'm going to start right now by beginning with what is on everybody's mind. On Saturday night, most of the IDF left Gaza, with the exception of the Nachal Brigade, which will remain along the Nitzarim border protecting communities in Israel's north, such as Kibbutz Be'ari. Amir, why is the IDF doing this? And is this the right thing to do right now?
Well, the IDF is now preparing for the last part that will be the really decisive moment where we're going to destroy Hamas, for the operation in Rafah and the central camps. Everybody in Israel is talking about the fact that we pulled out Division 98 from Khan Yunis. Division 98 of Khan Yunis has destroyed completely the Khan Yunis brigade of Hamas, and they were left with no enemy, no targets to deal with. So keeping the soldiers inside only endangers them. We need to change mode of operation. So we're taking out the division, and then they are going to raids operation instead of attack operation. We'll wait and see if and where terrorists will regroup. We saw that, for example, in the northern part of Gaza. We finished destroying the Gaza brigade and battalions. Then we pulled most of the forces out. At this stage, the terrorists regrouped in Shifa. We waited for them to regroup. And once they were all inside Shifa, we raided Shifa, killed 200, and arrested 500 terrorists. So this mode of operation we did in the north, this is what we're going to do in the south as well in Khan Yunis. But this pulling out of the Division 98, it's not only about that, it's also about preparing the division for attack in Rafah. I want people to know that the units already got their commands for Rafah. They have a timetable. The IDF is preparing to go into Rafah. And the day we go into Rafah and we take over Rafah, this will be the decisive battle that will bring Hamas down, a governmental and as a military entity. The timetable is set, but having said that, we need to understand that there might be a hostage deal. A hostage deal might delay the operation. And we don't know at the moment if they will or not. It's not clear. If there is a hostage deal, we're talking about a completely different situation. I don't know details. I don't know how long will be the ceasefire, what will be the price paid. It's not clear. But if there is no hostage deal, the army already has a timetable. The units got their missions. They are getting ready. We are going to move the citizens, Palestinian citizens in Rafah to Khan Yunis and to the coastal area. This is another reason why pulling out the forces. We need to evacuate the area so the citizens can go into Khan Yunis. And then we are going into Rafah.
Okay. Is there any kind of sense of victory among Hamas that when they see the IDF units, so many IDF units pulling out of Gaza?
I hope so. I hope that they feel victorious and put their guards down and do stupid things.
We're not.
And then this will give us the chance to hit them. I mean, if Hamas thinks that this is victory, you know, okay, let them think that until we go into Rafah and destroy them.
All right. So President Biden and certainly Kamala Harris has said that going into Rafah, President Biden said it's crossing a red line. And Kamala Harris said that there might be consequences, such as holding back in very important munitions for Israel. But in a recent article for Ynet, you wrote that Rafah is key to winning the war in Gaza. Can you please describe why this is so important and why it might be inevitable that the IDF will defy President Biden and Kamala Harris's wishes?
Well, I heard the statement of the vice president, but I must say that I think that the administration formally understands that we need to go into Rafah. It's not a question. They are concerned about the humanitarian issues. They want to see a plan how the people are going to be moved. But I think that even looking at the aspirations of the administration for a two-state solution, there is no two-state solution without destroying Hamas. I mean, it's not that Israel is for a two-state solution, but even the administration understands that if Hamas continues to control Gaza, their own vision is completely irrelevant. So they want to destroy Hamas as well for their own reasons, not for our reasons. Now, why Rafah is so crucial? Well, as we moved and took over more and more areas in Gaza, the Hamas retreated to the next place. We took over the north, they retreated to the center and south. We went into the center, they retreated to the coastal area. We went into Khan Yunis, they retreated to Rafah. Rafah is the last place, there is nowhere to go. They are with their back to the wall, literally. There is a wall there that the Egyptians built. So this is the decisive battle, that's it. They don't have anywhere to retreat anymore. All the leadership of Hamas is in Rafah. Almost all the hostages are in Rafah. All their capabilities, they took to Rafah. So when we go into Rafah, it's not going to look like anything we saw until now. Until now, one of the things that people are asking, they're saying, you know, yeah, but we took all the north. Where is the hostages? Where are the leadership? We took Khan Yunis. Where are the hostages and where are the leadership? Well, it's very simple. They are retreating to the next place. But that's it. Gaza is small. There's nowhere to go anymore. And this is where they're going to be destroyed.
And speaking of humanitarian corridors, Israel is not the only nation that borders Gaza. Egypt does as well. Why is it that Egypt is not letting in any of the Palestinians from Gaza, despite the fact that they're showing such sympathy for them?
Well, I'm asking the same question. I think that, you know, there can be many reasons. But I think that what we need to focus on is the hypocrisy of the Western world and the Arab society that talk about humanitarian issues and yet lock all the Palestinians in a war zone, not letting them go out. And I'm not talking about forcing anybody to go out. There are hundreds of thousands of women and children that want to get out of this hell. They want to get out of Gaza. They don't want to be in a war zone. And they are being locked by the Egyptians inside Gaza. And nobody cares. I didn't hear the administration even once complaining about this outrageous situation. I mean, imagine that in Ukraine, when 40 million people wanted to leave Ukraine, they would have locked Ukraine. The countries wouldn't have let any Ukrainian to go out of Ukraine. Can anybody imagine something like that? The whole world would have been dealt with that. So why are the Palestinians different? And I think that, you know, the world behaves in a way that, like, they think for them. Nobody is asking them what they want. I don't know anybody who went to a Palestinian and said, what do you want? No, they think that they will decide for them. They want to stay in Gaza. No, they don't. I can say that long before the war, 60 to 70% of the Gazans wanted to emigrate. Now, I would assume all of them. But the Egyptians are not opening the border, and this is devastating. This society is being moved from one place to another. Because what can we do? We need to win the war. We need to destroy Hamas. And they are intense for 6 months. Okay, not that I feel so sorry for them. They are all supportive of Hamas, but anyway, I think there is a lot of hypocrisy.
Tremendous
and
hypocrisy.
sad. Yeah.
Okay, the Biden administration has been rushing to draw plans for a Palestinian state in Gaza and Judea and Samaria with a quote, revitalized Palestinian Authority. Yet you've, I'm sure, seen the recent polls where both Israelis and Palestinians overwhelmingly reject this notion. According to the Palestinian Center for Survey and Research by Khalil Shikaki's polling center, along with many others, only about 5% of Palestinians support the PA. Yet the Biden administration is intent on working only with them. Can the United States and other nations unilaterally impose such a state if the major parties to the dispute are unwilling?
No, nobody can impose on Israel something like that. The Palestinian-Israeli conflict is not going to be solved by other nations. It's an Israeli-Palestinian issue that needs to be worked bilaterally. There is no chance of really building any Palestinian state in any foreseeable future. Israel is not going to withdraw from Judea and Samaria. This is not the kind of solution that Israel will agree to. And Gaza will take decades to rebuild this place. I think the whole talk about a Palestinian state is really completely disconnected from reality. I think that the war, I mean, people are behaving like if the war is over. It didn't even start. We have Lebanon, we have Iran. Maybe the hardest part of the war hasn't started yet if we're going to a full-scale war with Lebanon, with Hezbollah. So this is going to be a very long war. Even after we bring down Hamas, there will take years to clean the Gaza Strip, to dismantle this whole infrastructure. I'm not talking even about how do you de-radicalize the society. It will take years. If we'll do that, I don't know if we're going to deal with de-radicalization, but we need to. And talking about the Palestinian Authority, as you said, Sarah, the Palestinians detest them. They want them gone. And you cannot revitalize this corrupt terrorist terrible organization. They are all, really, really into destroying the state of Israel. This is the main goal. And I think that the day after Abbas, this whole organization will go into chaos. And we'll have to build from scratch solutions, which might be based on local clans, as now is planned in Gaza. We need new ideas. And the Palestinian Authority is not going to be the solution.
Do you know anything about the newly appointed Prime Minister, Mohammed Mustafa?
No, the fact that you change one person doesn't change the organization. I mean, they are now for years trying to bypass the Taylor Force Act. They are absorbing thousands of terrorists into their ecosystem. The whole ecosystem is full of terrorists. I mean, we have seen many terror attacks in the last few months conducted by Palestinian Authority officials because they are absorbing more and more terrorists. What does one guy, bureaucratic position cannot change the reality of the essence of the Palestinian Authority?
So last week, as you know, there was a terrible, unfortunate tragedy when a convoy of the World Central Kitchen was mistakenly hit by the IDF, killing 7 aid workers from 6 countries, including the United States and Canada. Of course, this has amplified the international outcry against Israel, and it includes a very strongly worded letter that was sent to President Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Friday, signed by 35 Democratic members of Congress, including the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. As you know, the letter was urging the President and the Secretary of State to reconsider his recent decision to authorize the transfer of new arms to Israel and to withhold this until there's a full investigation into the airstrike. What steps has the government of Israel taken in light of this very unfortunate tragedy? And do you think that this is going to be sufficient to alleviate the concerns of certain members of Congress from a certain party and of the international community?
Definitions of anti-Semitism is double standards. And I think what they are doing to Israel is terrible because, I've been fighting for 6 months. Israel always tries to uphold international law more than any other country. And, in wars, you have mistakes. The US has done huge mistakes in wars and operations. Why are you holding us to a different standard that, your standards? I mean, anybody with a minimum of common sense needs to understand that things happen, We didn't do it on purpose. But because of this reality, the IDF investigated this very fast. We understood what were the mistakes, and there were mistakes. Of course, the attack was unintentional. I can say that the officers who commanded the war room didn't know, because they didn't get the information, that with the trucks of humanitarian aid, there will also be pickups of this humanitarian organization. He didn't know that. And he saw armed people going to the pickups, and he thought they were terrorists. He waited until all the trucks arrived to their destination and brought the humanitarian aid. And then when he saw the pickups moving from there, he attacked them, thinking they are terrorists. But the reason why he was punished is because the attack he did was in an area where we needed specific agreement from the command. And he didn't talk to the command, he attacked. But he didn't attack because he thought this is humanitarian aid, he attacked because he thought these are terrorists. So because of the devastating results of this attack, the officer was punished and removed from his position. And Israel presented this investigation to all the ambassadors and the countries. And as far as we are concerned, this is over, and we're continuing doing what we need to do to win the war.
Yes, following up on this, we know that Israel is really fighting an existential war. We're being threatened on all sides. Hamas in the south, Hezbollah in the north, the Houthis also, with attacks on Eilat from the Red Sea. Along with this, there's been an uptick of terrorist attacks from Judea and Samaria. Will the potential of the United States withholding arms transfers inhibit Israel's ability to fight these wars and to successfully complete the mission and keep the Israeli citizens safe and secure?
Well, I think that at the moment, what we're dealing with, following the attack Israel allegedly did in Syria, where we eliminated an Iranian general that was coordinating attacks on Syrian land and Hezbollah. Iranians got very upset, very worried, they were penetrated, and they said they're going to attack Israel. So now at the moment, Israel is in a very high alert on all fronts with all our air defense. Yes, we have many fronts, but overall, until now, we're dealing with this pretty well. The big issue is Hezbollah. Hezbollah is, the real challenge. We need to first decisively win against Hamas, and then we'll have to deal with Hezbollah. Many of the Israeli forces at the moment are training for a war in Lebanon. We hope that maybe there will be a diplomatic solution, but for this you need American leadership. You need to really threaten Iran militarily. We don't see it happening at the moment with the administration. So there are good chances that we'll have to go to war with Hezbollah, and the army is ready, and also the society is ready for such a scenario.
Right. I'm in Israel right now, and I have to tell you, the resolve is very determined, even after 6 months. I think, the average person on the street that I've spoken to really wants, and they know that they have got to execute this war, that there's, and no choice, en brera, there's no choice, that they have to fight and succeed. So it looks like at least this administration would never go to war against Iran. It appears that way. It appears as though they are a little war wary of wars in the Middle East and wars in general. And they're, of course, trying to satisfy part of their electorate in Michigan. Do you believe that Israel and Israel alone can endure the responsibility of dealing with the Iranian head of the state? Or is there a chance that the United States might actually acknowledge that this is a very important part of our own national security interests at home and eventually attack Iran?
Well, I think that, you have a Chinese, Russian, Iranian front in the Middle East. Iran is moving fast towards nuclear capabilities that will be devastating globally. This will endanger every American and every European and every citizen in the world. And The US all along said they're not going to let Iran be nuclear, and they're moving fast towards nuclear capabilities. So I would expect the US to stand strong against Iran, but this is at the moment not happening. And this is even in a reality where Iran is utilizing all its militias, shooting missiles on the biggest ally of the US, you know. And I think that the whole world is looking at the way the administration is treating Israel. And they are asking themselves, if the US treats like that its biggest ally, how would they treat us? How much we can trust them? And this might be devastating for US international relations, for how much other countries will trust, you know, the US and the ability of the US to side with its allies. Therefore, I think that it's very, very important that the US really, really stands strong with Israel and really ensure that Israel wins decisively this war. It's a message not only for Israelis, it's a message for the whole globe, how important it is for US to back up its allies and stabilize the globe and the region.
You say a little bit about the tens of thousands, I don't know, 60,000, 80,000 residents of the North that have been displaced from their homes, and why it is very necessary for them to feel safe and secure to go back home and attack Hezbollah?
Well, the citizens of the North saw the devastating attack on the 7th of October, and then suddenly really understood what is the danger. And they are not willing to be raped, decapitated, taken hostages, and therefore they are not willing to have Hezbollah on their borders. They understand the danger, they understand that they cannot be sure 100% that if Hezbollah attacks, they will be safe. So they're not going home until we destroy Hezbollah in South Lebanon or Hezbollah withdraws from South Lebanon. And this is a clear understanding in the government and also in the army. And this is why we understand that if Hezbollah doesn't retreat, we are going to war. That's it.
Right. Okay, so now it is my pleasure to hand the podium over to Sarah Grace, who will read some of the questions that have come in. Sarah Grace, are you there?
Hi.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, so hi. Thanks for being here with us and for your expertise and knowledge that you've shared with us. So one of the questions is about the multi-front aspect of the war. And why is it that Iran and its proxies, Hezbollah, for example, are holding back when it comes to really assaulting Israel? Like, what do you see as their strategic impetus behind this?
So Iran wants to keep its proxies as intact as possible to defend itself. Iran without Hezbollah and without Hamas will be completely exposed to an Israeli attack or American attack.
Mm-hmm.
So they launched Hamas to an attack in order to disrupt the buildup of a coalition, of an American-Israeli Sunni coalition. But they wanted to keep Hezbollah intact to defend themselves. So they're very, very careful in the way they're using Hezbollah. But at a certain stage, if they feel that war is imminent and it's going to happen anyway, they might launch Hezbollah to an attack. It's not an easy decision, not for Iran, and certainly not for Hezbollah, that is also pressured from inside Lebanon not to go to war, because the situation in Lebanon is devastating. For them, a war now, it's really bad, and they are blaming Hezbollah for getting Lebanon in trouble and in war.
That makes sense. What do you think would be Israel's motivation to preempt and go in before Hezbollah takes on full force?
Well, if Israel anyway decides to go to war, it's always better to preemptively strike most of the capabilities of Hezbollah and diminish dramatically their capabilities and work like us. Very important to be proactive and do it preemptively.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you were mentioning the US perspective on this, right? Like the fact that the US should show its strength and that also influences the way the world perceives the US. Do you think that in this case, because of domestic politics, it seems the Biden administration has tried to play a little bit of an in-between, has tried to walk the tightrope, so to speak, and not really be sustainably aggressive in its view on Iran, on Hezbollah, on Hamas even. What do you think this means for long-term US national security interests?
Well, I think that the US is stuck with things that happened before. The main enemy the US saw in the Middle East was ISIS, was Al-Qaeda, who attacked the US on US soil. And when they fought ISIS and Al-Qaeda, Iran fought them also. So in a way, Iran was assisting American interests. And we said all along, Iran is a much bigger enemy. And now really understanding that these Iranians who maybe at the time served American interests are now endangering America and the globe, it's for some reason it's something that the US is not really realizing, and they don't understand that Iran is an enemy. Iran is weaponizing Russia. Iran is weaponizing all these militias that are terrorizing the whole Middle East. They're terrorizing countries in the north of Africa. They want a control of the strains of Hormuz, of Bab el-Mandab, of even of Gibraltar. And it's a challenge for us to really get the administration to understand how big is the threat from Iran and understand that they're our enemy. I think that the US is very focused, much more focused on China, on the Pacific, on Russian-Ukrainian war. And it doesn't feel it wants to like open another front. But I don't think they have a choice. I think they will have to deal with this. There's no going around the Iranian threat.
Yeah, I mean, the US itself has been attacked when it comes to Jordan, for example. We lost some service members. Do you think there will be a tipping point? And if so, what? Like, obviously, when it came to Ukraine, for example, like you mentioned, and China, the rhetoric has been stronger. What do you think will change the US rhetoric in the long term?
A change of administration, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. I think that at the moment the US is really focused on elections. I mean, everything the administration is saying is driven elections. And at the moment, the interest is how to get the faster possible quiet. You know, they don't want noise. The Middle East is bothering them. They would like to go to sleep and wake up with no Middle East. But the Middle East is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And we cannot control what's going on. People cannot say to Israel, hey, you know what, finish the war. No, it's not going to be finished. We have to defend our people. We have to bring back all the displaced citizens in the north. And this will be long. It's going to be a long war. If America wants to really stabilize the Middle East, they need to get proactive and strong and really, really threaten Iran, that they'll attack Iran. The day Iran will be threatened, everything will change. And this is not happening at the moment.
That makes sense. When it comes to the tightrope that the present administration continues to walk, do you think that the administration will at some point make good on its efforts to cut aid, or its collaboration with Israel? At what point do you think would be their bright line?
Again, please.
When it comes to the collaboration with Israel, it seems like there's a lot of threats or heavy-handedness when it comes to the US approach to Israel and influencing Israeli policy on the ground militarily. At what point do you think the US will take a firmer stance in influencing Israeli policy, especially during this election year?
Hard to say. I don't really know.
So
Many things. So many things might, affect that. It's hard to say. I think that the US is playing two games. On one hand, they understand they must assist Israel. They need to stand with us, and they're sending munitions and weapons and everything we need. On the other hand, the rhetorics are really bad and, almost sound like supporting Hamas. And this is, I think, done to appease many of the more progressive and more maybe Muslim society. So they're doing both at the same time, supporting Israel and attacking Israel. And I don't see it changing until elections.
I see.
Some other questions have come in that I'd love to answer. Can you talk a little bit about what Egypt does and also what Jordan does to break international law, and how Jordan has been whipping up its population and weapons from Syria are going to Jordan and going into Judea and Samaria?
Egypt, the problem with Egypt is that the Egyptians, since Obama, have lost faith in the US, and they are getting closer and closer to China and Russia. This is very dangerous because what keeps the peace agreement is that we are both on the same side. When the Egyptians are starting to move east, in the long term, this might be a big problem, and it requires the US, again, to be a much stronger ally also to Egypt. And at the moment, the Egyptians, yes, they're getting assistance from the US and money and so on, but they really feel that this is not a strong enough relationship. And then you see it in Egyptian rhetorics. Jordan has renewed relations with Iran. A lot of weapons are smuggled through Jordan, Iranian weapons to Judea and Samaria. We captured quite a few. The rhetorics of Jordan is also terrible, but I can say that at a certain point, the Jordanians felt that they are losing control of their own society. The riots that began against the war, and now they have reduced dramatically the rhetorics because they feel that they're losing control of their own society. They might endanger them. So we don't hear much of Jordan in the last 2 weeks.
Interesting. And one of our viewers said, what is Israel going to do with 5 million Palestinians? Does Israel intend to continue the dominance of Palestinians? And then what kind of state will we be? Will we still be a Jewish state? How will we take care of all of these
Israel will
Palestinians?
be a Jewish state. Israel needs full security control of all of the land of Israel. We need to secure the borders, also the Egyptian one. We have many different solutions to make sure that the Palestinians rule themselves. This doesn't mean they need full sovereignty. There are many, many states and territories and autonomies that manage themselves and don't have an army or don't have airspace or are surrounded by another entity. So, Sarah, we can have a whole discussion about solutions, which I'd be happy to do. When my book will be released in a few months in English, people will be able to read exactly what Israel needs to prosper.
That is wonderful.
And also what solutions adhere with that. And there are solutions. The whole notion that it's either, we have to withdraw to undefensible borders or we have to annex 5 million Palestinians. It's not true. There are many solutions, and we'll find a solution that adheres to our needs and national security needs.
I'm actually
Sarah,
really looking forward to that. All right.
Yeah.
We'll
so
have you
because I
back.
have to go now on national TV, we need to
Right.
wrap up. I'm sorry. You know how by the minute
Right.
is my time.
Yes, right. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a very, very valued spokesperson for the state of Israel right now. And I've seen you on a lot of Israeli television shows and American. So thank you so much. And I look forward to reading your book and having you on to discuss
Thank you very much, Sarah.
viable solutions. Thank you very, very
Thank
much.
you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, be well. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much to everybody that has tuned in. Please know that we work very, very hard, not only on our weekly webinars, but on educating members of Congress on both sides of the aisle, and writing and publishing. So I ask everybody to please support us to the very best of your capability, and go to ametonline.org. Thank you very, very much. We will see you next week with another wonderful guest. Bye bye now.